Rheneas is a brave little engine who enjoys working in the mountains on the island of Sodor. Even though he is little, Rheneas loves feeling like a really useful engine. One day, Sir Topham Hatt came to see Rheneas. "I have a very important job for you," he boomed.
"An important job?" cried Rheneas. "Oh, thank you, sir."
"You are to take some school children up into the mountains. You must make sure they have a wonderful time and are back in time for their lunch."
"Yes, sir,"
said Rheneas. But he was worried. He wasn't sure he was good enough to make the trip special. When Rheneas arrived at the station, the children and their teacher were waiting on the platform.
"How am I going to make the Children's Day really special?"
he said to Rusty.
"You know the mountains better than any engine," said Rusty.
But Rheneas wasn't sure his best would be exciting enough. He felt like a very little engine indeed. Sir Topham Hatt had told Rheneas's driver to point out all the beautiful sights along the way. "This is Sodor Castle," called his driver. "It is very special and important." Rheneas saw the castle every day. He didn't think it was special or important.
"I must think of something exciting to do," he puffed to himself.
"This is the valley view," said his driver. "And here's the viaduct." Rheneas was still unhappy. The trip didn't seem wonderful to him at all.
Must be special, he puffed.
Meanwhile, Rusty was working on the rocky ridgeline. Heavy rains had washed the ground from under the tracks.
"These lines are too bumpy and uneven," said the foreman. "The tracks must be closed for repairs." Must be special.
Rheneas was still trying to think of something that would make the children's trip special. He didn't know the linesman had forgotten to switch the points. Suddenly, Rheneas was on the wrong track.
"Oh no! This line is closed for repairs! Bust my buffers!"
Chuffed Rheneas.
"Be careful!" cried Rusty. "The tracks are very bumpy!"
Rheneas whooshed down the mountain like a roller coaster. The children cheered. Rheneas puffed up the rocky ridge with all his might. His coach clattered and bumped and bounced along behind. And the children oohed and ahed. Rheneas chuffed and puffed as hard as he could. He steamed across the trestle bridge. He was going so fast the teacher nearly lost her hat. Rheneas splashed under a waterfall. The children laughed happily, and the teacher covered her eyes. At last, they could see the station. Rheneas was very tired and worried. What would Sir Topham Hatt say? "Phew," said the teacher. "Just in time for lunch." "It was the best school trip ever," cried the children. Sir Topham Hatt wasn't cross with Rheneas. He was happy, too. "You gave the children a wonderful trip. You really are a very useful engine."
"Oh, thank you, sir,"
puffed Rheneas proudly. Rheneas didn't feel like a little engine anymore. The engines love working when the sun shines. One day, Thomas and Percy were helping Salty at the docks. But Salty was worried.
It may be sunny now, matey, but there be a storm coming."
"It may be sunny now, matey, but there be a storm coming." "There be a fierce storm on the way, Captain," peeped Percy.
Salty knew they were making fun of him. He felt sad. Later, Sir Topham Hatt arrived. "I want you to fetch Fergus from the smelter's yard," he said. "His driver doesn't know the line."
Aye, aye, sir,
replied Salty sadly. Salty was glad he was going to the smelters. He didn't want to stay where he wasn't liked. "What's wrong?" asked Emily.
Nobody likes to be made fun of by silly tank engines."
And he huffed away. Emily knew she had to find Thomas and Percy immediately. "Those be dark clouds, matey," whistled Thomas.
There be a fierce storm on the way, Captain,
peeped Percy. Emily was cross. "It's not nice to copy the way others speak. You hurt Salty's feelings."
We were just having fun,
said Percy. "We'll say sorry to him," added Thomas. But Salty was nowhere to be found. Thomas and Percy were worried. Fergus was waiting for Salty when he arrived at the smelters. "Right on time," congratulated Fergus.
"Aye, but there's a storm coming,"
said Salty.
"We must hurry."
Soon they were hooked up and on their way home. Salty was right about the storm. It was a fierce one. The ships at sea depend upon the lighthouse to keep them safely off the rocks. But now there was trouble. "The lighthouse lamp has gone out!" cried the captain. Salty and Fergus were fighting their way through the wind and rain. Then Salty saw a lantern ahead. The lighthouse keeper was waiting for him. "Our lighthouse lamp has gone out! Our generator is broken!" Salty had an idea.
"Fergus has a flywheel. It could power the generator."
"Hurry!" shouted the lighthouse keeper. Fergus's flywheel was attached to the generator shaft. Without the lighthouse, the ship was steaming towards the rocks. Fergus was working as fast as he could. Finally, the generator came back to life. The lighthouse beam shone across the stormy sea once more. "Just in time! Hard to starboard, matey!" Salty's idea had saved the day. Fergus worked hard until first light. The next morning, Salty and Fergus chugged back to the docks. They were surprised to see a crowd waiting for them.
"Thank you,"
said the captain.
"You saved our ship."
"Well done," boomed Sir Topham Hatt. Salty was very proud. "We're sorry if we hurt your feelings," puffed Thomas. "We were only copying you because we think you're grand."
"Then say no more, me hearties,"
replied Salty happily. Now they will all work together and have fun together, as good friends should.